Okay. I think we'll probably get started. Actually, should we get started?
Yeah, let's get started. So the talk today by Jerome and myself is quite a different talk over the 3 days of this conference. Quite a different subject. It's meant to make you maybe feel slightly uncomfortable. We've titled it the Psychological Leading the Digital, Leading the Physical, with a focus on the future of retail. But what does that really mean?
Well, it really comes back down to the fact that we're all human. We're all human beings. We all have a brain, and we all think and feel. And I think it's important to think about how we think and feel when we're creating these experiences. In the context of retail, applying those psychological principles to digital retail is really important. What's really interesting, though, is how we can apply what we learn in the digital space back to the physical, the high street that seems to be failing in this day and age. And there's some really interesting stuff that we've been looking at, and we'll hopefully show you what the future looks like.
So, first of all, hello. I am Anthony, brother of Jerome.
And I'm Jerome, brother of Anthony.
Yes. We're co-founders of a company based in England called Ribot. Ribot is taken from our surname, French surname. And we co-founded the company 7 years ago with a view of really tackling one key problem. We were frustrated by small screen experiences. We were frustrated that people really just thought about making things smaller and weren't really considering the user. We've gone on a very interesting path. We've learned a lot over the last 7 years. And the key thing, really, is starting back 7 years ago on small screens, there's a certain way of design, a certain way of thinking that you can apply to all sorts of other form factors and experiences. So as the market moved, we then went to tablets. We've more recently gone to phablets. We've got 80-inch touchscreens, and we've got physical spaces that we're now designing.
So you could say there's something that we almost don't care about.
Yeah. So we're agnostic. What do I mean by that? I find it's a funny statement to say, but I couldn't care less about technology. Even though our company, we employ 15 people, is based in the technology industry. I couldn't care less. We need to be device agnostic, platform agnostic. What's the other agnostic that I normally talk about?
Well, I think they're the two main ones.
And technology agnostic. I couldn't care less. But what you need to fundamentally care about is that end experience.
Yep. Cool. So, going back to this talk.
Yeah, so the point of this talk, as I mentioned before, it's quite a different talk for this conference. Hopefully it's a little bit inspiring. You can walk away and might make you think in slightly different perspectives to the work that you're tackling today.
Yeah.
So it took me 3 years to realize this point, that few things stand still. 3 years of running a company. Very few things stand still. And actually, change is everywhere. It's immense, and change seems to be increasingly intense. It's really hard to stay abreast of things, even in your own industry and within your own company. So, but where we are today, there's actually never been a better place for multiple industries working together. There's a massive problem of industries working in silo. But I think over the last year or so, we've seen a start of a new trend where industries that aren't communicating, collaborating, are starting to collaborate. And for me, I think that on behalf of Jerome as well, that is the future of a great experience.
So
and that's
a good example of that for us would be that we're working really closely with architects now. We're like software people, right? We don't really normally get involved in physical space design, you know, but now it's kind of like, well, you have to. If you're doing what we're doing, you have to, and it's amazing. You can do so much cool stuff that you couldn't do before because you've suddenly got this amazing new dimension to work with.
So, Jerome.
Am I not very loud? Do you increase my volume?
Increase. Just project your voice more.
Okay.
So, the focus of this talk, though, is on a few stories around retail. So, the current state of retail. What does it kind of consist of? So, one of the key stories, we've been working for about 4.5 years now with the third largest grocery company in the world, a company called Tesco. And they have, their main user profile is the busy mum. Now, the busy mum has a key behaviour, which is known as little and often. Now,
what is that?
What is that? What does that really mean? So back when there was just the Tesco.com website, little and often implied it meant that the busy mum would log on to Tesco.com. She'd perform one function first of all, and that would be to book a delivery slot. And then the end of the 5-10 minute experience, maybe added a few items, milk, bread, you know, the normal bits, and then that experience ends. And then almost random intervals throughout that week, she will have 5 to 10 minute experiences, logging on, adding a few items, removing a few. Then on Friday evening, she'll sit down with her partner and will spend 10 minutes processing through the order, looking through, adding, removing, and then placing the press order button, and the goods arrive Saturday morning. When we first discovered this kind of behavior, this was back 4.5 years ago when Tesco didn't have any mobile elements. Mobile just seemed to really fit nicely, because why should it be 5 or 10 minute experiences? Actually, it should be more around 15 to 20 second experiences, if that. Shopping is a chore.
And it's a challenge that they needed to solve.
Yeah. So exactly, shopping's a chore. People find value from things in different ways. People return to your products for a number of different reasons. For if that product increases or saves you money, saves you time, or enhances a current experience. Those are 3 key reasons why they will return to your tool, your product, your experience. So, as I mentioned, what we came up with was the Little and Often Shopping, an app on an iPhone. So the kind of what we're very used to now, but for Tesco back then, this is 4 years ago. It took us 6 months to research, to design, to build, to test. But in that 6-month project, how long does it take for Tesco to make their money back? 1 week. That's when Tesco realized that their experiment was no longer just an experiment. It was a very valid market for them. So then there's the natural story of taking it across different platforms and making the most out of each platform, just enhancing the experience and providing the best of what people want on the types of devices available.
So that's cool. So we've been involved in the digital retail space for a while. Can you hear me? Is that okay? Is it better? Is it okay? Bit louder? Bit louder? Yeah? But there's an interesting transition that we made when working with Tesco, where we're moving into the physical realm. They have Amazon is purely digital. They don't really have any shops. They don't have any shops.
Or at least that's where they started.
Right. And so Tesco are a traditional retailer. They have physical stores. I mean, they're the biggest landowner in the UK. They have physicality in their lifeblood. But there are problems. There are problems with the physical space. Here are 4. There's fundamentally a disconnect between the two. Sorry. There's a disconnect between the physical and the digital right now, and we'll go into some examples of how we can solve that. But there's also a rivalry between the high street and the Amazons of this world. There doesn't necessarily need to be. Generally, in the UK at least, there tends to be a poor customer experience in the physical stores in the high street. And yeah, I mean, the recession didn't really help. The high street is failing.
The high street that we all used to know and love.
Right, so it has to change. So Tesco came to us and said, yeah, we know these problems. We know these problems exist. And this is a small story about how we're trying to combine the digital world with the physical world. So yeah, Tesco Innovation, they're an R&D arm of Tesco. And yes, really, what the aim of the project was to look at physical stores, but in a digital context. And I'll explain more in a bit. So they understand how things are changing. They want to see how digital can work better in store. We had what's called a 2-pizza team. So there's only 3 people, 3 designers. I'm in the middle there. Hello. Essentially, there's a number of people who could eat 2 pizzas. 3 people. Tara, who is the UX person. Myself, I was kind of the vision person. And Ben, working on the motion designs and things like that. A small team. Current pain points. So Tesco and us, we highlighted these 4 key or 5 key pain points that we really wanted to try and resolve with this project. In Tesco, you can only show so many products. You can only have so many products on the shelves, and they really had. This is an issue that they're really trying to resolve. The shelves can only hold so many things, especially the larger items as well. When you go into a retail space, search is fundamentally physical. You literally need to walk to the search result, if you know what I mean. You need to, I don't know, there's no notion of finding something using any digital technology to make it better or faster. So, yeah, search is fundamentally physical, and it's harder. Especially, how can you make the experience better, especially for larger or high quality items? Like we said before, there's an online stroke in-store disconnect. But yeah, they share so much. They're the same products, right? But they're fundamentally very different experiences right now, online and in-store. And lastly, we have this thing called the nasty kiosk syndrome. If you ever go to a shop, you'll see these horrible little kiosks that just look like you really don't want to be seen using them because they just seem like they're meant for people who don't really have a clue. We really didn't want to give people that experience. It's a negative experience. We want to try something a lot better, a lot more aspirational. So there were lots of possible solutions. Here you can see some sketches of possible store concepts that could be taken further. I won't go into the details because of time, but we ended up going with something like this. Essentially, the aim was to replace an entire segment of a shelving unit with a large touchscreen display. So essentially, we're extending the concept of a shelving unit, but essentially that part is purely digital, and it's surrounded by physical products. Either side, please. Yeah. So, and this is the kind of like high-level vision concept sketch of what it could look like. So you've got the physical stores on the physical products on the left and the right, but the digital in the middle, and they're seamlessly integrated. The point was really to expose the higher number of products that Tesco has online, but in a physical sense. So essentially, people can browse many more products here than they could see on the shelves. It's a touch screen. It has a physical output as well. So essentially, there's something to take away with you when you leave the store. I'll go into that in a bit more detail. So yeah, it's a big screen, but really it was about those small emotional details that make the experience much better. Trying to make the best of the physical and the digital.
And I guess the other point on the big screen, small details, is that yes, instead of 4-inch screens, which we were used to, we had 80 inches to play with. That doesn't necessarily mean that you put more in that space. Actually, by making things physical, you're actually constrained more and you put less in.
Right, and we also need to know our place as well. We are a screen that exists in a much wider context. There are other things that people are going to be looking at and be distracted by. We don't want to fight with those things. We want to work seamlessly with them. So it's different. Right, so I'm going to go through a few little concepts of things that we've thought about from a digital perspective that work in the physical environment. The first one is efficient proximity. So essentially, the idea, here you can see, this is the screen in a very simple context. And these squares represent the products. So the idea was really to, from a distance, not give the user too much information too soon. I don't necessarily need to see all the text on the screen because actually I can't read it anyway. So why do I need to show it? We're using Connect. There's a Connect sensor up the top there, and essentially when you walk towards the screen, the Connect sensor detects the user and shows more UI information when you're closer. You don't need to see that stuff when you're far away. Why do we show it? We don't need to. Keep it simple. Keep it elegant. And we also looked at things like height. All these little things will make such a lovely difference to the experience and really make people feel emotionally good afterwards.
Yeah, and I guess all these things these are the ways that we can take advantage of this interface actually being digital.
And in a physical context.
Yeah.
So, again, here is our screen, our 80-inch touchscreen. On the left-hand side is a small menu component, but it's adaptive. It's personalized in a subtle kind of way. Small child, because this is a touchscreen that will be situated in the toy aisle of a Tesco. So essentially, it will be used by parents and children and everyone in between. So we wanted to try and think about ways to get lots of different types of people, because it's such a large screen, to use the experience. So essentially, we detect the height of the person, and we can change the position of key components on screen as and when they come. Slightly large person, maybe like a young child, no, maybe an older child perhaps, and of course the adult, of course. So these are small details that we're thinking about when we're designing in a physical sense, but we're using digital technology like the Connect to make that happen. So yeah, it's not purely digital. I think we need to know our place, like I said before. We need to know our place if we're designing in a physical sense to know that it's not just about the digital technology, but also how does that manifest in reality?
Yeah, and the core part of the experience of this was digital. Yes, physically you were touching it, but what we wanted the end part of the transaction to be would be a actual physical item, because people do love to touch and feel something.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. And so essentially, these cards will be printed out when you choose a toy. And essentially the process is you take the printout to a kiosk around the corner, and then essentially that item is then handed over to you or delivered to your door. This is a card that's split into two pieces. The left-hand side would be for the child, and the right-hand side would be for the adult. So the adult would take away the card and all the collection date stuff and all the information or the marketing material on the right-hand side. But both parties would get something out of it. And they had a whole collection aspect. We made a whole collection of them, and they became something that people wanted. We found that there were people would be printing a lot of these cards, and we had to slightly change the UI to prevent abuse. Like, but yeah, people love to collect them. They're really, really successful. I don't have volume. Okay, sorry. So, like I said, we were working in a physical space, in a shopping, in a supermarket where there are many things that are trying to attract your eye, attract your attention. And on the one hand, yes, like I said before, we have to know that we're not the only thing that is in that store. We have to not shout too loudly. That said, we have to try and engage people from afar, try and attract them towards the screen. As well as that, there's an education piece. you see this large 80-inch touchscreen, you're like, oh my god, well, it's just so big. It's so big. And I don't know how to use it. So essentially there's an education piece as well. So we really wanted to try and surface some key interactions before people would walk up to the screen. So they go, okay, if I walked up to the screen, I would know how to use that thing. And it's just like, you don't have to think. So we created a small video. Sorry, the volume is very low here, but it's cool. So this essentially would show on a loop when you would see this in store. So there'd be a hand there showing the gestures, some key interactions with the menu. Here I'm actually doing a little search. You can't see it very well. Doing a little search. But essentially what we're trying to show you is that this thing is easy to use and all the core things you can do with it. You can tap on these items like that rocket there. I'm going to give it a little cheeky spin. And the process to go through in order to print out a ticket. So that was really important for us to, it really helped actually, because we did a round of testing without that, and people were like, I'm not sure what to do. And yeah, so essentially, moving on, we had, this is the before and after shot. So the before on the left is the toy aisle before the screen was in place. After, you can see that it's this kind of strange beige thing. It's kind of quite domineering and a little bit strange, a little bit out of place. But it was the first iteration of the hardware experience.
And the important thing for us, using lean startup principles, was to get this thing that we'd been creating in our own studios out into a physical environment in front of customers as quickly as possible. We didn't care about the frame. The framing is, as Dre mentioned, kind of very, very ugly in this iteration. But we didn't care about it at this stage. That wasn't important.
But so we did have a vision.
Yeah.
And essentially, there was something that felt a lot more. I don't know. Tesco had a specific brand. They used a lot of red. We had this vision of how we would like it to look slightly differently to what it was in the first iteration. I went through a 12-week trial. This was what happened at the end of it. We had a final iteration which had a lot more marketing material and some education piece, but it felt a lot more integrated than the first piece. A lot more Tesco, you would say. But you'd say, well, how is this relevant? Does this actually do anything? Is it just a marketing tool? No, it isn't. There were some amazing results.
So yeah, fundamentally, one of the main problems Tesco were trying to tackle was the awareness. They're known for groceries. Their bigger stores do have a kind of a wider range of items, but they're still kind of growing. So a key thing was the awareness that they have this range, and actually that they have a bigger range. By having this device in store, they weren't restricted by the physical space anymore, and they actually had, I can't remember the number, but no, the number in store would be maybe 800, 900 in store normally, but with this device, you had about access to 15,000.
I think it's important to remember that, that could actually be counterintuitive when you have, you say, it's too many products, but the way that we designed it was that you would never really see 15,000 products. You'd see something that was appropriate for you or your child by segmenting by age, etc.
So, as Dre mentioned earlier, that it reduces the need for physical search now. Yes, you still have to make your way over to the toy aisle, but that's you making a kind of cognitive decision that you do want some kind of toy, but it's much easier to conduct the search. There's some key different ways in which you can search for toys, like developing certain skills of your child, developing motor skills or cognitive skills.
You would never have that exposure, that sort of data structure, if you like, for a physical shelving of toys.
So another key thing was that actually it allowed people to experience products and understand them, and it was influential in essentially the customer returning. The customer wouldn't necessarily purchase the item there and then, but it would be a key part of their decision-making process.
And I think the card aspect, I mean the printed cards that we have, they were really important because people would take them home and they would refer back to them in the evening on their laptop and buy online.
Yeah.
So
and personally, we didn't care where they bought, but it was a useful tool along.
Yeah. It goes back to this thing of like if you have an online presence and a physical presence, there is no rivalry. It's a unified thing. They're buying from one store, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So, and half said that they would buy something seen on screen that day. So, yes, that was an interesting success, really. I guess one thing to note with this, though, the hardest battle, and this is the same with every project that we work on, because it's key to our design principles, is keeping it simple. Keeping it simple, keeping it simple, keeping it simple. As a project grows in success, more stakeholders come in place, and I guess one of our ways of trying to keep things simple is just little and often experiments, actually, validating assumptions. If you just create an experience based on opinions, that's not really going to work. And the way big corporations seem to work from our experience is that, okay, once you've got some numbers back, once you've got some quantified measurements, then they really do kind of understand those things, and everyone learns.
Yep. Cool. Keeping it simple is definitely the hardest battle, I think. Yep. Okay. So, we've talked about the digital and the physical and how they can work well together. This next chunk, if you like, is about a different company, although they're part owned by Tesco, but don't let that fool you. But really, it's a little bit more about the psychological as well. Harrison Hall. They are a coffee chain, a new coffee chain in London. Only in London, and they're in the area around London as well, but they're only in the UK. They've only been going for about a year.
Yeah. So they've got a total of 20, at last count, 23 shops in London. And that was actually one of the reasons why we were personally quite interested in this project. They had very little legacy in their systems. Yeah,
there were no like nasty, scrapey eyes or anything like that. But even from a customer experience perspective, we could define the interaction between the staff and the baristas. This is the fascinating thing about working in the middle ground between digital and physical. You expose yourself to so many more parameters, so many more possibilities. But they had a challenge, didn't they?
Yep.
Yeah, so in the high street in the UK, the coffee industry, it's kind of rubbish. It's kind of, we have probably maybe 3 large coffee chains, Starbucks, Nero, and Costa,
yeah.
And they're all pretty much the same. I think Nero would probably say they were slightly better.
Yeah, and in London and in key other cities, yes, there'll be a few independent coffee shops, but they're independent and they're few and far between.
Yeah, and so actually, Harrison Hall's idea was to take something of the independent experience, i.e. the better coffee experience, and take that to a broader audience. And so really, one way they wanted to do that was by looking at the customer experience and making that much more personal. And when I say personal, I don't just mean physically, I mean digitally as well. And actually, what does that mean? What does that mean? So we were involved with this, okay, so I'll go through actually. We're involved with this. This is the Harrison Hall app. It's on iPhone and on Android soon too. Essentially, the aim of the app is to encourage loyalty. This screen is one of the first screens you see. So one of the USPs around Harrison Hall is this concept of my usual coffee. So essentially, I go through and I can choose what's my favorite coffee. This happens to be a flat white. I like a flat white. I'll choose that. And so you can specify the modifiers about that coffee. So I'm going to have a medium one and 2 shots, semi-skimmed, although I'm more of a soya guy, and a standard temperature, please. Done that. So I've specified my usual in the app. I then walk into a shop, like the one you saw before. I'd pull down on this little loyalty card to check in, much like you would on Foursquare. But actually, the problem with Foursquare is you don't really get much out of the check-in. You get some kind of social currency thing, but there's no real meaningful emotional bonding to that check-in. I've checked into a Harrison Hall coffee shop. I walk up to the barista, and they say, "Hey Nick," or "Hey Jerome" in my case. I'm like, wow, how do you know my name? So at first it's like, that's kind of crazy. The reason they know that is because when I check in, on the till system, we show the person's face, my name, and then I say, "Hey, can I have my usual, please?" And they already know what my usual coffee is. It comes up on their till system. And they say, "Great, flat white coming up." And it's like, wow, this is amazing. So, and then of course, they add a stamp to my card, which is on the phone, which means I don't have to carry around these nasty cards. It's all done on the phone. And, yep. And yes, of course, we also give people a free coffee when they start as well. So when you download the app for the first time, you get one free coffee. So it incentivizes people to come in and try out the experience. And you get a receipt with your correct name, right?
Which for me is important. I don't have a H in my name, Anthony.
And you know what? It feels like magic. It's like, wow, I've never had this kind of experience before.
It's kind of hard to describe in a presentation like this without experiencing it for yourself. Even as the designers, the creators of this experience, until you actually go into that physical space, you don't realize what you've actually created. And the magic bit is, it feels magic because the technology is hidden. You as a customer, you're not, the only touch point with technology is really when you've checked in with your app, then you put the phone back into your pocket, you walk into the shop, and that's it. They know all your details. That's the bit.
It's amazing. So really, for us, a key thing about being agnostic and being true to our word is that, yeah, we don't care about technology. And actually, technology, if you guys have seen recent videos on social networks around the overuse of mobile phones, like at key moments in people's lives, like having a child or a birthday, everyone's got their phone out, everyone's so consumed in their own small digital world that they don't really have a real connection to the world around them. And it's kind of scary. It's a new problem.
And we're not designed for that number of connections.
But we can do something about it. And actually, if we try to use technology to hide technology, like we're doing here, we'll have an increased quality of real interaction, like we used to talk, with real people. And it makes people feel real again. It makes people human again. And people, they really love it. They really, really love it. It's crazy. Because, when you walk into a H&H, they say, "Do you want your usual?" You go, "Yes," and immediately the conversation goes to the next level. The conversation goes to, "So how's it going today?" And you go, "Oh, well, I've got this deadline." But, you don't have to worry about, thinking, "Oh, what do I want? How am I going to say it? Do I have my card?" All these things, all these stopping. This is the feedback from the manager. We had a pilot study. One of the managers said, "Yeah, at first I didn't. It was kind of crazy that we were doing this, but the fascinating thing is, people were just having amazing conversations with people straight away that we weren't before."
And this all relates to this ongoing question that we've been asking ourselves for about a year now of what is the future of the high street? Does it have a future? Short answer is yes, it does, but its future is more around great experiences. We've only actually seen it in a few places so far. Obviously, most of us know the Apple experience. There's a few other experiences in London, the Nike store, in terms of their support. Whenever anything goes wrong with the fuel band, it's an amazing experience. And so then, my loyalty with that brand, with the product, it continues. And then I become almost an advocate.
The emotional side of things is really important. The psychological, understanding people's needs when you're designing digital or physical experiences is massively important. The good thing about the digital is that by checking into this store, And the way that we're using the data associated with that person and how we're giving back to you, it adds a layer of emotion that wasn't there before. It means that we're actually able to, I don't know, it feels a reciprocal relationship where, yes, you're giving me your data, you're exposing to me your Facebook, like in the previous talk, we talked about how we would use this Facebook social data for various means. People are aware of the fact that they're sharing this information, but if you can give something back that's more to them, then they'll be wanting to do it again and again and again, and they'll want to promote that with their friends.
Yeah, and personally, I'm still really curious as to how Foursquare has actually been able to last so long with a non-emotional check-in, really.
So, you know, it would be all well and good if the results that came back from this project weren't very good, but they are really good. They're really, really good. We've been seeing a massive increase in the loyalty. We're seeing lots of regular behaviours of checking in, of going through this same process again and again and again. On the App Store, we have, I think 95% of the ratings of the app are like 5 stars. People love it. People love it. And it's increasing week on week as well.
Yeah.
So, but what about the future? You know, that's what we've got now. And, I mean, admittedly, we might be in a different situation in the UK to what's happening here in Germany. But in the future, payment is something we're looking at now. It's important to get right. Starbucks partnered with Square to roll out payments, mobile payments, effortless payments in Starbucks. And it's not going so well. It's not going very well at all. Partly due to the technology, but partly due to the training of the staff. They try to roll things out very quickly. They try to roll things out to 100,000 baristas at once. And I think anyone who has worked in, who uses a lean startup approach or trying to do things in an iterative way, you limit the number of risks and just test things out and then sort of grow the week on week. You learn from the mistakes and you iterate the product, and then when you gain confidence, you grow the experience and you release it to more people. That's what we're going to do with payments. It's going to be effortless. So the same way that it is check-in as usual, it will be equally effortless to pay.
So a high level question that we have. So why should it's really asking why do I go to till? Why do I have to get the card out? Why this coffee shop should be about two things. Should be about two types of experience: coffee experience and a social experience. Those are the two reasons why you go. It shouldn't really be about anything else. So that's part of our teachers going to be in retail.
So I think probably say that this is checking in. We've only just seen the start of how it can really be used in an emotional, in a really functional way as well. So as well as the payment side of things, store architecture, physical architecture will be fundamentally affected by the digital and the UX of the digital experience. I can't get into too much detail right now, but essentially, previously, the building would be built, and we would go, okay, this is the layout, this is what we're working with. Okay, I guess we should sort of promote this kind of behaviour because that's the way the store is laid out. Now, we are talking with architects and working out a flow that suits the user that can then be sort of built out both on the architecture side and on the digital side at the same time.
So we're placing ourselves in slightly uncomfortable waters, which we like to be in, and we're pulling the architects into slightly uncomfortable waters. So, but make it the best of both.
But I think there's a unique opportunity to try out new things, and actually this is part of our concluding remarks. Yep.
So on the term of on the topic of retail, again, lean startup, we're seeing more and more pop-up shops and concept stores that will only increase. There's various, just in our local city, they've taken away the rules for actually setting up a shop. You don't have to go through the paperwork to create a kind of a shop space anymore. You can just go and do it.
Yeah, I think the high street had to change. In the UK, we have we had this problem where every high street in every town would look the same. I guess in other countries it's not so bad, but in the UK it was particularly bad. Yeah. And I think that when the recession came, lots of high street brands like Woolworths, etc., failed. They didn't make the transition. Blockbuster Video, another one. They've gone into administration again. But what that meant is that we need to be more creative and really rethink how this high street functions and what it should be used for. So removing litigation and unnecessary legal hurdles to experiment and try out new concepts is really important.
But we've had to go through quite tough times for people to realise that. More collaboration between retailers. We're wrapping up now. This is an interesting one. This is more we're seeing it in pockets, but part of our future vision. Most people see Tesco as a grocery company. Others who know Tesco a little bit more know them as really a property company, as Jerome mentioned, biggest landowners in the UK.
You could also call them a data company.
Data company, yes, club cards. I actually see them as a logistics company because, and that's where the collaboration comes in. I see them in, let's say, 10 years' time as becoming the logistics network behind all the kind of the high streets in the UK. You want a product delivered to your door within 15 minutes, that's their network that can deliver that before you even get home. That's the kind of collaboration that we'll start to see very soon, and that kind of that is actually happening in the US in a couple of states, or a couple of cities actually I should say. Again, as we've mentioned, rate of change, it's been slow for many years, many things haven't changed, but with the advent of pop-up shops, concept stores, with Apple launched the iBeacon, there's a low-power Bluetooth device, the retail spaces will change immensely because of technology. Even we can't conceive what's going to happen actually. Yeah, we've mentioned this already, but the customer experience will be core to retail. This is what you'll go to the coffee shop because it provides the best experience. And the best experience is a combination of the coffee, yes, the value for money, but you'll go there for different reasons to what you go there today for.
And I think the high street is playing catch up to digital, to the online world. Amazon has incredible customer service. You know, I don't think Tesco has very good customer service traditionally in store, but I think they're looking to change that. And I think they'd be wise to do so. The customer experience is crucial to the high street's future.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I think we can, if the retail world can do it, the physical retail world can do it, then hopefully that can inspire many other industries, especially industries that are even just in the software worlds. So looking forward to seeing all the emerging trends from that. As a couple of people have mentioned already today, it is really important to do what you love and to say no to the stuff that you don't love.
And you know what? If you say no, it feels wrong sometimes to say no to people or to things, but it will make you feel much better in the long run because it will mean that you're doing what you really want to do. And
you'll do it better. And
that also applies not just to work as well. It applies to your friends. It applies to any activities that you feel you should be doing. If you say no more. And Steve Jobs once said, innovation is saying no to 10,000 ideas. And I think that's really, it comes back to focus as well, and actually asking yourself, is this the best idea? And no is one of the most important words you can ask yourself.
Yeah.
But more of a yes. Yes, we all need to work together much more closely. We'd actually not heard of Typo 3 before coming to this conference. we work in a different area, but there's no reason why we shouldn't work together in the future. And if we did, some amazing things will happen. So if we work together more, you know, these future experiences are going to be possible. So.
All right.
Dankeschön. Have a great time. Enjoy. I think that's exactly 45 minutes, but
Yeah.
any time for questions?
Don't know. Oh, yes.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. How does log in?
How does it work?
So it uses Facebook Connect. So we associate the customer's account with a Facebook account, and we are very clear about that. They don't need that, but if they didn't use Facebook Connect, we couldn't get their profile picture, but we just needed them to take a photo of their face.
So, yeah, and at the moment there is an explicit behaviour that the customer needs to do. So when they're out and about in London, they're walking towards their coffee shop, they launch the app, they pull the loyalty card down or press the button, and it checks them in automatically to the closest H&H, the closest coffee shop. At that point, their details arrive behind the till.
Yeah, and oh yes, is that answer the question? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yes. Okay. I think the interesting thing with augmented reality, it does have a place. I think Lego have used it quite well in their stores, where essentially you have this this box that contains lots of shape, lots of little bricks, and you want to see what this thing looks like in reality, and you take the product up to the scanner, and it shows an augmented reality vision of that product
rotate
fully built, and rotate it around. And I think for us, we've yet to find a good use of it for the projects we've worked on. And I think being agnostic means you're critical of everything, positively so. And I think that for us, we just want to make sure that whatever we're doing has significant value to people, and it doesn't annoy them or isn't a fad. Some implementations of augmented reality have been slightly faddish, and it hasn't really taken to the mainstream just yet. But you know. We're always experimenting, so. Yep. Cool. I think we are.
We'll be at the party later.
Oh, yeah, so we're doing some dancing.
Thank you.
Cool. Cheers, guys.